Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking on a truly fascinating stack of sources that pull us in three very different yet profoundly interconnected directions.
That's right.
We're talking global flashpoints, international tension heating up, then there's high-stakes trade maneuvers that could reshape alliances.
Big stuff.
And finally, what might be happening with the prices we all pay every day, right here at home. So get ready, because we're about to give you the shortcut to being truly well-informed, maybe even a few aha moments.
Indeed. Our mission today is to untangle these complex threads for you. We want to offer clarity, some critical context on, well, first, a recent, pretty alarming geopolitical incident.
Yeah?
Then, a significant shift in U.S. trade policy with a key ally, India. And finally, some intriguing economic data that would signal substantial changes for the economy and, crucially, your wallet. We'll extract the most important insights so you understand not just what happened, but really why it matters.
All right, let's dive into our first big story. This one feels like it's pulled straight from a thriller, honestly.
It kind of does.
Our sources describe this really dramatic event on September 10th, 2025. Russian drones attacking Western Ukraine. Okay? But then repeatedly crossing into Polish airspace.
Yeah, into NATO territory.
Exactly. And Poland, understandably, called this an act of aggression. They're saying it's the closest they've come to war since 1945. That sounds serious.
It is serious. And what truly stands out here is the response. Immediate and overwhelmingly multinational.
How so?
Well, as these drones crossed over, Polish and Dutch F-35 fighter jets were scrambled right away, showing NATO's rapid reaction.
Top-tier jets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And beyond that, NATO's integrated air defense systems kicked in. German Patriot systems in Poland were involved in detection. Even Italian air defenses played a role.
Wow. So not just Poland dealing with it.
Not at all. It very quickly escalated into a full-blown NATO-level action. And it's actually the first time NATO aircraft have had to engage a potential threat directly over Polish airspace. It's a stark reminder of that collective defense idea.
And the impact wasn't just, military strategy. It hit regular people. Warsaw Chopin Airport
A major hub.
had to close temporarily because of these military operations. Imagine the chaos, widespread flight delays, disruptions for travelers.
And Poland even confirmed they shot down several Russian drones. One actually caused damage to a residential roof.
Get out of here. A roof.
Yeah, a stark visual of how close this was. And they're still searching for more debris, which just tells you about the scale of it.
Okay, so Poland's response, they invoked something called Article 4.
That's right. NATO Charter, Article 4. Now, this isn't Article 5. That's the attack on one is an attack on all collective defense trigger.
Right.
Article 4 is rarer. It's a deliberate political move. It's for formal consultations when a member feels its territory or its political independence or its security is threatened.
So it's like raising a serious alarm within NATO.
Exactly. And Germany immediately backed Poland's decision. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg condemned Russia, warned them to stop, and reiterated NATO's readiness to defend all its territory. It sends a very clear message to Moscow.
Germany's defense minister didn't mince words either, calling it an attack on Poland's sovereignty.
And he emphasized the drones flew on a clearly intentionally set course and were armed. He was basically saying this was no accident.
So not just a glitch or bad navigation.
That seems unlikely, given the details. While it didn't meet the Article 5 threshold, no major military destruction or casualties, thankfully it was, quote, intentional infringement of international law and the sovereignty of Poland.
The UK weighed in, too.
Yeah, their defense secretary, John Healey, called Russia's actions reckless, unprecedented, and dangerous. And interestingly, he predicted it would actually strengthen Europe's support for Ukraine, kind of backfiring on Russia, potentially.
What did Russia say? I imagine they denied it.
Oh, absolutely. Quick denial. They claim the drones weren't armed, didn't intentionally enter Polish airspace, call it an accident, offered to cooperate with investigations.
So the big question is, was this Russia testing NATO? Poking the bear, so to speak?
That's what many in Poland and experts like Doatelis Sagamos at King's College London believe. They see it as part of Russia's broader playbook. Hybrid warfare or gray zone stuff.
What does that mean exactly?
It's like using tactics below the threshold of open war. Cyber attacks, sabotage, disinformation campaigns, things designed to destabilize or pressure opponents without triggering a full military response. Poland's Prime Minister Tusk even suggested Europe itself was under direct attack.
Like Russia's poking NATO with a stick, maybe seeing how they react, but not hitting hard enough to start a real fight.
That's a good analogy. Testing response times, testing resolve, maybe seeing where the weak points are in the air defense network.
So what does this mean going forward? More incidents like this?
Experts unfortunately think so, yeah. It highlights an urgent need for NATO to develop a better, more multi-layered air defense system.
Because sending up multi-million-dollar F-35s to shoot down cheap drones, that doesn't seem sustainable.
It's not efficient at all. It's like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, as the saying goes. Very effective, but incredibly wasteful. And strategically, think about it. If Russia can force NATO to keep using its most expensive missiles on cheap drones...
It creates a huge cost imbalance.
Exactly. A serious tactical and economic problem. It's pushing the need for new counter-drone tech, maybe lasers, AI swarms, something more cost-effective.
And what about the U.S. angle here? President Trump has been very focused on NATO contributions.
Right. Events like this force that debate again. Does Russia truly threaten U.S. security directly? Should American soldiers be involved in these kinds of responses? It's that constant balancing act between alliance solidarity, sticking with your partners, and strict national interest, especially with President Trump emphasizing burden sharing. This incident definitely puts those questions back on the table.
Okay, shifting gears now. Let's move from those geopolitical tensions to the global marketplace. President Trump's approach to India, it seems complicated.
Complicated is a good word. Fascinating, maybe even contradictory at times. Our sources show this mix of really tough talk, but then also some surprisingly warm overtures.
Right, because for the last 6 months or so, the stance seemed pretty firm against India, didn't it?
Very firm. Mostly focused on two things. Big arguments over tariffs, and India continuing to buy Russian oil despite U.S. pressure. That really seemed to be driving a wedge between them.
And the tariffs were serious. A 50% tariff on a lot of Indian goods.
A hefty 50%, yes. Yeah. Making those products much more expensive here in the U.S. for importers and probably for consumers down the line.
And then another tariff on top of that for buying Russian oil.
An additional 25% specifically linked to the oil purchases. So yeah, some Indian products were facing a potential total of 75% in tariffs. Just staggering.
Oh, now. And sources suggest that could actually slow down our economic growth by jacking up import prices.
Potentially, yes. Meanwhile, India, facing this pressure, started strengthening its ties with Russia and even China, looking out for its own energy security and economic interests. It felt a bit like they were being pushed into a corner.
But then, suddenly, a change in tone from President Trump.
A dramatic softening, yeah. Quite recently. He expressed hope for renewed trade talks, called Prime Minister Modi, my very good friend on social media, said he looked forward to speaking with him.
A very good friend, after imposing massive tariffs.
Raises eyebrows, right. He talked about paving the way for the infinite potential of the U.S.-India partnership, and Modi quickly responded, saying India was ready to wrap up trade discussions. It's quite a pivot.
But is the pressure really off? Because I also read he was pushing the EU to slap 100% tariffs on countries buying Russian oil like India.
Exactly. That's the confusing part. Even with the friendly words, there's this simultaneous move. He urged the EU to impose 100% tariffs, hinting the U.S. would do the same if they agreed.
So using other countries like India as leverage against Russia.
That seems to be the strategy, trying to pressure Putin to negotiate by hitting countries that buy his oil.
Yeah.
So it's this carrot and stick approach with India. Friendly words, but a huge potential stick waiting in the wings.
How does India even navigate that? It sounds unpredictable.
It's incredibly tricky. Experts are cautioning India to watch President Trump's actions much more closely than his words because the rhetoric can shift so quickly.
And that 100% tariff threat is real.
If the U.S. followed through, it could effectively double the already high tariffs India faces, a massive economic blow. Even some in the U.S. Congress are debating sending a stronger message if India is seen as helping Russia.
But isn't there a risk of pushing India away towards Russia and China?
That's the huge risk.
Yeah.
Alienating a key democratic partner like India could be really counterproductive for long-term U.S. strategic goals in Asia and globally. Pushing them further into the arms of Russia and China isn't ideal.
And India has its own limits, right? Things they won't budge on.
Definitely. Our sources mention specific red lines. Things like opening up their agricultural markets, allowing U.S. dairy imports, and, critically, stopping Russian oil purchases. Those seem to be non-negotiable for India.
So even with the very good friend talk.
India's leadership seems to believe the underlying U.S. policy positions haven't actually changed that much. It's a really complex diplomatic dance, both sides protecting their core interests while trying to find some common ground. India is walking a very fine tightrope.
Okay, wow. So let's bring it all back home now. Impact on daily life. The wallet. Our sources picked up on a surprising drop in a key inflation number. The Producer Price Index, or PPI.
Yes, the PPI. This is an interesting one. It dives into what businesses are paying for goods and services before they reach consumers.
So like wholesale prices.
Exactly. Think of the price tag for raw materials, the flour for bread, the steel for cars, and also finished goods moving between businesses before they hit the retail shelf where you buy them.
And a drop usually means less inflation coming later.
Often, yes. It can signal that price pressures are easing further up the supply chain, which might eventually mean lower prices for us. And both the main PPI and the core PPI, which strips out volatile food and energy, fell by 0.1% in the last month. Not huge, but a drop nonetheless.
What caused the drop? Anything specific?
A big factor was the services sector, which fell 0.2%. And within that, something called trade services, basically. Wholesale and retail margins, transportation costs dropped a sharp 1.7%.
Wow, 1.7% is a lot for 1 month.
It is, and that was largely driven by a nearly 4% drop in wholesale prices for machinery and vehicles. Energy prices also dipped slightly, which is always good news.
Okay, so what does this mean if producer prices are falling?
Well, one interpretation is that businesses are actually reducing their profit margins. They're absorbing some cost increases instead of just passing them all directly on to you, the consumer.
And that's new.
It seems to be a shift. Just back in July, businesses were mostly passing costs on, but in August, the data suggests they absorbed them, the most logical reason. Consumers are getting really price sensitive.
We're pushing back, saying enough is enough with price hikes.
Seems like it. Companies are realizing if they don't cut their margins a bit, maybe offer some discounts, their products just won't sell as well, especially for businesses serving lower-income folks.
Right, because those government stimulus checks from the pandemic are long gone.
Exactly. That cushion isn't there anymore. So if you're living paycheck to paycheck, maybe somewhere like here in New York where costs are high and the price of something basic goes up too much, you just stop buying it or find a cheaper brand. Businesses are feeling that pinch now.
So what do the big economists make of this? Incursion, for example.
Well, someone like Mohammed Incursion argues that if the Federal Reserve is truly data-dependent, making decisions based on the latest numbers, this PPI drop should make them seriously think about cutting interest rates. Maybe even by 50 basis points?
Half a percentage point. That's a big cut.
It would be a significant move, yeah. Signaling a major easing of policy, making borrowing cheaper for mortgages, cars, business loans, everything.
But is it that simple? Is everyone agreeing this means lower inflation and rate cuts?
Oh, definitely not. The interpretation isn't straightforward. Our sources really outline a few different scenarios here.
Okay, like what?
Well, scenario one is the recession possibility. This kind of aligns with Incursion's view. If spending by lower-income consumers keeps shrinking and businesses keep getting squeezed, it could potentially tip the whole economy into a broader recession, which usually means job losses and often a falling stock market, a classic downturn signal.
Okay, that's one possibility. What else?
Scenario two is maybe more nuanced. Economic stability, but with widening polarization.
Polarization meaning?
Meaning a bigger gap between the rich and poor.
Yeah.
Wells Fargo CEO Charlie Scharf offered this perspective. He sees the overall economy as actually very stable.
Stable, despite the PPI drop and consumer pressure.
Yeah. He notes, overall, consumer spending is holding up across different wealth levels, and fewer people are defaulting on loans. Delinquency rates are actually looking better. But here's the key nuance he points out. There's a huge gap opening up.
Between who?
High-income and low-income earners. Wealthier customers are still spending quite freely, kind of propping up the average numbers. But lower-income consumers are really struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, maybe taking on debt just to manage basic costs.
And we see that in other data too, right? Like stock ownership.
Exactly. A report from the Philadelphia Fed backs this up. Only about 43% of U.S. adults even own stocks. And there are big gaps, like only 32% of people without a college degree own stocks, compared to 67% of college grads.
So the stock market doing well doesn't really help most people directly.
Not the majority, no. So connecting this back, even if companies can't raise prices on lower income folks, if the overall economy, GDP, keeps growing, if the wealthy keep spending, if hot sectors like AI keep booming, the stock market might not crash.
So we could just see society getting more divided. Wealthy people doing fine, everyone else struggling more.
That's the worry in this scenario. A deepening social and economic divide, even if the headline numbers look okay.
Okay, that's a sobering thought. What's the third scenario?
Scenario three is simpler, maybe. Statistical issues with the PPI data itself?
Like the number's just wrong
Huh.
or misleading.
Potentially, yeah. Wall Street analysts often find the PPI pretty volatile, jumpy month to month. They tend to prefer other inflation measures like the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which tracks what we actually pay.
Right, the price of groceries and gas.
Exactly. Or the PCE, Personal Consumption Expenditures, which is the Fed's favorite gauge. And this recent PPI drop didn't really cause big waves in market forecasts.
Why not?
Well, that trade services component that drove so much of the drop, it's been incredibly inconsistent lately, swinging wildly up and down. It seems pretty unlikely businesses are changing their actual profit margin policies that drastically every single month.
Good point. It doesn't make business sense.
Right, so it raises the question, could this just be a statistical blip? Maybe problems with how the data is collected or estimated, especially if some businesses aren't responding to surveys. If that's the case,
Then maybe next month the PPI bounces right back up.
could happen. And if it does, this whole deflationary signal we're discussing now might just evaporate. It could be a temporary data quirk, not a real trend.
Wow. Okay, so 3 very different ways to look at just one economic number.
It really shows you how complex interpreting this stuff can be.
What a deep dive.
Ah,
Seriously. We've gone from tense skies over Poland, navigated President Trump's really intricate sort of two-sided dance with India on trade, and then sifted through these complex, maybe conflicting signals in our own economy with that PPI drop.
Yeah.
Drones, tariffs, your grocery bill.
Yeah,
It really is all connected, isn't it?
much more than it seems on the surface. And each of these topics really highlights why critical thinking is so important.
Yeah.
Looking beyond just the headlines. Whether you're trying to understand, international relations and military stuff, or just figure out what these economic numbers mean for your own life, there's always more to learn, always different perspectives to consider.
Absolutely. It reminds us how global events ripple right down to our personal finances, our sense of
Yeah.
security. So as you go about your week, knowing that, drones are testing alliances, trade policies are shifting with this mix of pressure and diplomacy,
Right.
and maybe consumer sensitivity is actually starting to shape the prices in your local stores. What are you going to watch most closely in the coming months? What angle feels most important?
And maybe think about what implications you see for your daily life, maybe your job, or even your community.
Lots to think about.
Keep questioning, keep exploring. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.